Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of 3GIQ. I'm Frank Gao, joined by my co-host Matt Gunlock, and today we have Staff Sergeant Andrew Dow. He's coming to us from Marine Corps Cyberspace Operations Battalion out there in Fort Meade. He is a defensive cyberspace operator, recently competed at National Capital Region Marine Corps Marksmanship Competition. It's the first that they are going to do. They're eventually going to move to all the other installations and all the other MEFs. Andrew he's from Stratford, New Hampshire. So we want to bring him on today and talk about his experience at NCR. They also did their first night match. So we're going to talk about some of those details, talk about how he shot. And in general, we want to focus on the conversation today about how you approach a MCMC mentally in terms of strategy, because that's something you and I talked about when I was there, Andrew. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been listening and watching your videos on the podcast and all that, so it's been cool.
I appreciate it. It's
of course.
It's definitely a passion project that we kind of take seriously to an extent.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll get this started. So, how did you get? When did you start competing? How did you hear about it? And what was your first introduction into it?
So the first time I'd actually heard about it was probably around 2015, 2016. My first unit, they were putting together a command team to shoot out at Pendleton, or it might have been 29 Palms that year. I wasn't able to get on the team. I'd get sent to, I think, ITX or something like that. Since then, I kind of had an interest in it and tried over the years to get on it. And every single year we were, just too busy for whatever reason it was. So I wasn't able to go. So last year was my first actual MCMC. I had done a civilian marksmanship program, like intro to EIC match. It was just a very very quick match. It was I think it was like 200 yards only, iron sights, national service rifle match or whatever. So I mean, it's kind of cool just to kind of see what it's all about, but it really just felt like table one on the Marine Corps range. So it wasn't
that's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad. It's kind of cool just to get some experience from some of the civilian distinguished marksmen. But yeah, so last year would have been my first MCMC, and that's kind of what got me into competing. So
no, so so last year was your first year. So can you describe how you heard about the Marine Corps shooting team and the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, and what really kind of help? I don't want to say trigger, but help guide you toward coming out to the MCMCs.
Yeah, it just kind of goes back to that 2016 and or 2015 timeframe, somewhere around there. And finally being able to get on the actual MCMC and get out there and shoot. Yeah, it was a blast, and that's what kind of lit the fire for me. So I didn't actually compete again until about April. That's when I was expecting nobody would compete in the wintertime because it's cold and everything. But yeah, so that's when I started competing on my own in my off time.
Hell yeah.
Separate question. Can you describe like the local circuit of matches that you participate in your area, but also the Virginia area?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of seems like all the different match directors kind of coordinate. So it's almost like every single weekend there was a match. I would shoot out at Associated Gun Clubs in Maryland, I think it's in Marriottsville. I shot at Anne Arundel County, Fish and Game, shot at Shadowhawk, Thermont, all the way down to Fredericksburg and up to Quantico, or I guess down to Quantico. So it was almost like I think there's a 2-month period where I was shooting at least one match, sometimes even 2 matches every single week. So it was just like nonstop, which was really good practice, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Pretty expensive too.
I have a question with that. All right. So minus Quantico, because I've shot many Quanticos and I think they're high quality matches and they've done things from 2-gun, 3-gun. USPSA, PRS, 22 PRS. They have the whole gambit there at Quantico. Now up there in Maryland, and I've shot at a couple of different places, but which places did you find most interesting and most well organized and the best matches to go to there in Maryland?
Oh, it's definitely a toss up between Shadowhawk and that's West Virginia. Shadowhawk and then Thermont. Those are probably the two most quality matches. I've shot at AGC a bunch, and up until this past weekend they've been pretty good, but their bays are a little bit smaller, so they're kind of limited. And Thermont just has, they have all that land out there. So those are probably the two best that I would recommend other people to go to. They're really challenging, so it's definitely a lot more challenging than like a typical level 1 match, but still pretty doable.
Okay.
Yeah. We're specifically talking about Thermont USPSA, not their gun offering, which Matt and I shot this last week.
Thank you. And I'm not trying to talk shit on any match, but whenever you're dictating moving from one box to the next, or not have any kind of match flow, like I like to use like what Jason Byerly says, and like whenever he puts the stage together, it's kind of like a dance. There's got to be some kind of flow to it. There's got to be some kind of reason behind doing what you're doing. And I'm sorry to say, but Thermont did not hit the mark. And, anytime I've been there, it just doesn't seem to get better.
We're specifically, so we shot 2-gun on Saturday, Andrew.
Yes. Yes.
So what appeals to me about practical shooting is that well-designed stages are like puzzles that you have to solve with shooting and while being accurate. Bad stage design constrains your options and forces you to shoot in a very regimented way. Everyone's doing the same stage plan. That's not necessarily good. I know we've been talking about this topic, but what's the furthest you drive for a local match, Andrew?
I think the furthest I've driven is 2 hours. So Shadowhawk is the furthest one from my place, but still not bad. It's about an hour and 45 to 2 hours with traffic, so it's not terrible.
It's really pretty, Shadowhawk.
Yeah, it is.
So I would challenge you to check out some of the matches up in PA because they're not that far. 2 hours away, I'm sure you could get up to York in about that amount of time.
I have looked into them. I think one of their matches conflicts with a different one that I can't remember off the top of my head, but just the date, I think they're like the second or third Sunday of the month. So here's 3 different clubs that you could check into. And they do 3-gun. I'm not so sure about 2-gun, but Topton, York, and Ontalani. Like I've shot all their 3-guns there, and all of them are pretty good quality matches and really good people up there. Like, and I say this about a lot of the shooting sports crowds. Like I have a Minnesota crew, I have a Pennsylvania crew, and I have a North Carolina crew, and all 3 crews are great. And Pennsylvania just has an amazing crew. You have Jeremy Gresham who works at IWI. You got George Dorbert, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Ian Norris, somebody who I served with in the Marines, just overall really good guy and a really top level competitor that's going to, help push you and help you. Pennsylvania has a good group of people. Andy Snyder's another one of them. I mean, I could just go list name after name, but, check some of those matches out up there. I'm not trying to discredit anything from Maryland, but, I'm going to be honest. Maryland doesn't impress me as far as good matches in the multi-gun facet. Yeah, and actually, you guys kind of brought up a good point with the Shadowhawk match that I shot 2 weeks ago. It was a 2-gun match, and I shot it with Captain Levy actually, and we were realizing that every single stage was basically start with pistol, run the stage, and then go back to the start and do the exact same stage with a rifle, just obviously different targets. So I mean, It's cool. It was my first 2-gun match, so it was good exposure to that. But I guess from the lens of a more experienced shooter, that's kind of like, all right, well, there's not a lot of creativity in that, but
there's a reason I don't go back to Shadowhawk for 2-gun or 3-gun.
Noted.
The point to take away from all this is if you're a Marine stationed in Fort Meade or Quantico, there are places for you to shoot every single weekend. And the longest drive that you'd have to make, not necessarily anyone's forcing you to make, that long of a drive. It was about 2 hours.
Yeah.
But you could theoretically shoot every single weekend if you wanted to. Is that correct, Andrew?
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. You just gotta be driving, you know.
Lejeune's got a similar situation, but you got to drive a little further to get to good matches. Your longest drive is about 3 hours. But anyway, NCR, you just shot it. Can you describe your preparations? How did you feel going into the event, and what was your strategy?
Yeah, sure. Preparations, I didn't really do anything specific to the make. I kind of treated it like a normal, dry fire throughout the week kind of deal. Just working on the things that I know need to work on, like transitions, entries, exits, reloads, and drawing on the move. I noticed after a while of dry firing that I would just kind of draw static and not moving anywhere, and then you get to the range and it's like the first thing you got to do is get into a shooting area or what have you. So I tried to practice that a little bit. So nothing really specifically different. I felt pretty confident about at least just USPSA because that's primarily what I've been doing for the past 8 months or so. So I felt pretty confident about it. I know my PRS and action rifle is a little new, so I was a little bit less confident about that. But I think the instruction definitely helped out with clearing up some of the issues that I had with it last year. And as far as strategy is concerned, I didn't really adjust it from any typical match that I usually shoot. I just kind of went in there and I was expecting to shoot the same way as I normally do, which ultimately ended up kind of screwing me up a little bit. So
Yeah. So you didn't do as well as you wanted to.
correct.
But I mean, I wasn't necessarily looking for someone in the metal bracket to bring on to talk about NCR. The reason I chose Andrew is because he is at local matches every single weekend. He's consistent. He cares about getting better. And I would say, honestly, given how much time and energy you've been putting into it, you underperformed at NCR. And just looking, and this is a note for any Marine that is looking to shoot a MCMC, and Matt, you've run a lot of these yourselves. If you are looking to get in the metal bracket, if you shoot a clean match, you have a pretty good chance. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah.
Would you say they forced you guys to take some pretty hard shots? I think a lot of Marines pushed back. They focused on speed. They sacrificed accuracy. They hit a lot of mics in those shoots, and it is hard to stay in the middle bracket. Another part of that is the way points work in these matches. There's not a lot of points available, right? There's maybe 4 stages possible out of pistol. So your mistakes are going to hurt a lot more. That's why it's better to shoot a little conservatively. Now, I'd say there's 2 approaches. If you're trying to win the whole thing, if you're trying to take top gold, you got to keep pace with the shooting team guys. And they're not shooting super conservative. They're going to be pretty aggressive. And you got to be up there with them. It just, decreases your margin for error. But in general, metal bracket, shoot clean. So would you say that's accurate looking back on the way you shot NCR and also the way you saw other Marines approach NCR?
Oh yeah, absolutely. First stage off the bat was stage 3, so it was the first bay is upside down Dorito. First stage of the day, and I got a mic no shoot, so that definitely hurt a lot. And then kind of got in my head a little bit about it, so I was like, okay, I got to try to make up for that in the next one. And I probably just hit the gas a little too hard, and I think I got another mic or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, definitely if I had shot a little bit more conservatively, I think I would have been closer. I mean, I was still really close. I think out of what was 77 non-distinguished Marines, I was 12th or something. So I was very close. I did a lot better than I did last year, but those few little mistakes definitely hurt a lot. So
I tell you what, man, whenever I did my very first MCMC back in 2019, I think that was my first MCMC that I ever did. I all the way up into my last stage, I was for pistol, I was in 8th place. Got to my last stage and I just gripped the gun a little bit differently than what I did. I didn't, during the whole stage, I didn't realize what I was doing wrong, but I basically sent my pistol into bolt action mode, locking the slide to the rear every single shot. And it just completely ruined my game. So it's one little change can throw you off, can throw you out of the medal bracket. And instead of finishing 8th place overall, I finished 29th. And it's gut wrenching, yeah. But I mean, you learn from those little things in order to kind of apply it for the next time round. And ultimately, it makes you better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, uh, you shouldn't shoot scared, but just understand how rough it is to incur penalties in such a it's such a small match format. I watched Sam Nelson ping one no shoot at McMeek back in 2021. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I think he just took himself out of the medal bracket. It's better to be careful. Give yourself a fighting chance. How would you compare? Have you noticed a lot of improvements from your McMick last year and the McMick this year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Last year, I had no idea what action shooting was like and never done it before. So I just tried to learn as much as I could. And I was like, I think bottom 50%. So going from that to 12th of 77 overall of non-distinguished shooters, I think that's
huge.
huge improvement.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Huge
Yeah.
improvement, and also within context that Matt, do you agree that NCR and McMick East are probably the two most competitive McMicks?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and we'll kind of talk about this for a second here. Before the shooting team was only allowed to compete at one McMick, and that was typically, well, in the old days it was East, and then recently after NCR kind of took over for East for a short period there, NCR was the toughest match because only shooting team guys were there. So, your chance of getting a medal were slim to none. Now that we've kind of spread it out, it's the ability to medals a bit easier. But I mean, geez, the quality of people that you have competing at NCR, it's unreal. I mean, because you have Quantico Shooting Club there that Major Tim Hitchek puts on, and people are just constantly getting better and better and better because they're going out and shooting more and more and more, which is kind of what we want to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And a lot of dudes that were in the medal bracket this year, like consistently shoot with the team, like in their off time too. So like, yeah, having that exposure to those guys and the coaching at different matches definitely helps them out.
And the medalists from NCR and East, they usually comprise the medal bracket up at championships too. Like
Oh, okay.
they just, they're also not dealing with jet lag and a bunch of other stuff, but it's also like those just tend to be the most competitive McMics. So the fact that you barely missed the medaling bracket in a very competitive McMic, like you're still a good shooter, Andrew.
Appreciate it.
Go back and you got to fine tune some of those things. Yeah, I wish I talked to you before you shot that match, man.
Yeah,
But
it's all good.
it's all good. We learn, right? And you still went out and enjoyed yourself, and you brought your Marines out, which is what matters. Is there anything that you would have changed about the way you approached your practice days?
Yeah, I think I just would have taken it like take it a notch back, kind of be a little bit more cautious about it. There were a few stages where I thought I was like not quite gaming the game, but being like more clever in my stage design. And after talking with Ariano, like he explained it pretty well. For his stage specifically, there was I don't know. I'm sure you remember the I think Sat Bay 4.
Yeah,
It's
like a sweep.
Yeah. So where the target array of 3 was, I actually took that far target on the right, and I thought that would like save me time. But he explained it, and he was like, well, you basically created an additional shooting position there because I watched my video and I actually stopped, engaged that far target, and then ran through the 3 relatively quickly. But it was just enough to add a little bit more time than some of the other guys that went to that last shooting position and engaged that target there. So just would have taken a little bit more cautiously, and then same thing with the pistol stuff too.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm also used to shooting like a super heavy X5 Legion, and then 147 grain ammo. So going down to M18 with 124 grain, it was definitely a
An
big
eye
change
opener.
up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what would you say that you took away, and that you're going to be applying to your dry fire and live fire practices moving forward?
Um, I think probably just changing up a little bit of the way that I dry fire and having a little bit more of a regimented approach instead of just like, oh, I'm gonna do reloads for 5 minutes. Like I think I'm gonna take like no shit notes and like say like for 10 minutes I'll do this, 10 minutes I'll do that, and then specifically honing in on those skills, kind of breaking them down. I was doing that a little bit on the sidelines, and it was helping out, getting the gun out quicker, sights on target, all that kind of stuff. So
Now, do you have any dry fire books or targets at your house?
I don't yet. I found it actually. Cardenas showed me a pretty sweet video that you just throw up on the computer, and it does the whole standby beep and all that kind of stuff. So I've been using that pretty often.
Is that what you guys were all doing in the downrange club? Like after
Yeah.
all the had gone home?
There's like 5 of us in there dry firing the TV. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a different approach. All right. Oh,
That's
I guess
awesome.
what I'm getting at, like,
so very cool.
Ben Steger has like some really good books out, Dry Fire Reloaded. All any one of his books are just absolutely amazing, and you're going to learn something every time you pick it up. And it can help you get more of a tailored approach to your dry fire training if that's something that you look to do, setting up dry fire targets in different arrays and doing different drills just to aid in your process.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, there's definitely things I know to get to work on, like transitions. That was something I noticed in watching the videos, like, and after Cardenas's stage or practice day stages where he had us actually working on transitions, definitely noticed there was some work to be done in that area. So it'd be cool to see what Ben Steger has to offer for that.
Yeah, those are good books, and they're also books that you'll, if you stick with practical shooting, you'll continually go back to them. Even as you like after so many years, you got to go back and some things that you might have forgotten or you need a refresher on. How would you say the make is different from like your average local match?
So the conduct of the matches are pretty similar, just because I mean they derive the rules from the shooting sports. So outside of that, I think what makes it a little bit different is the degree of skill with the shooters that are all out there. Because I mean, there was one dude out there that had never shot a pistol before, let alone competed. And by the end of the 2 weeks, like he looked like he was a lot more comfortable shooting the handgun than from day one. I guess the biggest difference is we're allowed to dry fire on the sidelines. Typical USPA match can't do that outside of a safe area. Yeah, those are probably the two biggest difference. Just the level of skill, because I mean there were some dudes out there that were like super experienced, and then there's that one Marine that I talked to that had never shot a pistol before. So at a USPSA match, typically a lot of people there have a decent amount of experience. So
Yeah, would you say that the Mick is a good venue for a person that hasn't shot a pistol before?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the way that they did the pistol training this year. They took it back to the basics, which was awesome, because there were some of the dudes out there that, like I said, had never shot before. And then the dudes that had, me included, I was like, wow, my basic fundamentals are pretty trash now that I shoot, action stuff. So which is kind of funny, because I didn't think that those skills would atrophy as much as they did.
Yeah, sometimes you end up doing things that end up glossing over the fundamentals. So, for example, very simple thing I was doing that I figured out when I went to Ben Steger's class was that I was dry firing every single trigger press with my CZ shadow and double action. And what that was doing was forcing me to overcompensate with my trigger finger, and I was jerking. I was seeing a little downwards dot movement that I was then having to wait for to stabilize but take my follow-on shots. It was making me slower because I was just adding time to compensate for mechanical inefficiency. But he found that like right away. So it's good to go back to Ben Steger's like literature, any other dry fire book, like Steve Anderson and a few others do dry fire books too. But also take a class once in a while, because an instructor or someone who's like watched shooters for a long time, and like the Marine Corps shooting team, those guys, like, they're very well versed in watching shooters and diagnosing issues. Cardi once in a while will come up to me and just point out something. It's like, hey, you're doing this, you're staring at the dot. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're right. So it's very helpful that way. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's we kind of already talked about you being up at Fort Meade and everything, and we know what traffic in the DC area is like. It's miserable.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
quickly learning what 66 is like compared to 95, and they both suck. Speaking to traffic, commuting, all that kind of stuff, did you commute to Quantico every day from Fort Meade, or did you guys stay down there at the barracks?
Yeah, we stayed at the barracks. There were a few nights where I went home just to just be away from people, I guess, get some of my privacy back. But it was, every couple days. It wasn't every day. I was not trying to make an hour and a half drive every morning and then a 3 hour drive home. So yeah.
I gotta ask, how many guys did you have from Fort Meade there at the Mech?
So on the command sponsor team, we had 6 total. And then one of the Marines from my section was with me. So we just carpooled the days that I'd come back.
Okay,
I think all the other guys stayed in the barracks down there, Upshire. So
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, but it makes sense. If you're gonna go be down there for 2 weeks, then might as well commit to it. There's no point in commuting back and forth. I
Yeah,
just
no.
remember to follow on not a question but a comment. I asked you whether or not you thought that the Mic was a good venue for a beginner. I think there's a pervasive sentiment that competition means that you've already got your shit figured out and you're just going to like try to stomp everybody. That's not the case. There's a lot of things that new shooters can learn from the Mic. And in fact, I think it's good that new shooters go to the Mic. Like half of it, I honestly like the competition is a bit of the cherry on the top. If you medal, you medal, but most of it is the instruction and the lessons that you learn from those instructors.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
putting that out there because like, I'll tell Marines about competition and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not ready for that." I'm like, "You're not. It's going to be the fastest way for you to learn."
Yeah, exactly. And I've tried to get so many people into it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I haven't taken enough classes. I don't think I'll do well." Those are like the three, biggest things. But I mean, I went to the Mic last year without ever having competed. I was always shooting indoor ranges, and you really can't get anything close to that in an indoor range. So
No.
yeah, it's the perfect venue for people to get into competition shooting, and I think that's probably one of the biggest driving forces for the purpose of the Mic is to get people out there shooting and get them introduced to the world of competitive shooting. So
Yeah, man. Couldn't agree more. I want to talk about the night match. So this Mic was the first iteration of a night match in the middle of a Marine Corps marksmanship competition. Can you describe the format of that match, the equipment that you were given, and then just talk about how it went?
yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. It kind of reminded me of like the tables, whatever night tables you do like annually. I can't remember. Yes, yeah, 336. Kind of reminded me of that. At first when they mentioned night match, I thought it was going to be like basically like a regular, multi-gun stage, but at night. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting for all those guys that have never shot a competition, let alone shoot it under nods. Yeah, they gave us PEC 15s and NVGs for the night. Gave us a class on how to get everything set up, get everything zeroed. Actually, Germanello was out there. He gave a really cool primer about parallel zeroing and parallel zero. Yeah, parallel
Parallel
zeroing,
and converging zeros. Yeah,
converging. Yeah,
for the laser. Yeah.
yeah. So he kind of broke that down, which is kind of neat because I mean they in MCT and every year when you do 336, they just kind of they like
Yeah.
slap it on. They're like, all right, go shoot, and then that's about it. But this was a little bit more a little bit more technical. And then they give a class on how to set everything up, make sure everything worked for you. And then they ran through the stages, showed us what targets we'd be shooting at, distances, the target order, I believe, too. And then we started shooting, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot better than the typical night matches that we do or night shooting that we do.
So they did that on the Saturday in between the weeks, like right after instruction before you guys went into competition. It was the same Saturday you guys did ARQ, right?
It was, yeah. And it actually wasn't even that late of a night. I thought we were going to get out of there like 2 o'clock in the morning, but I think we were out by probably like 10 o'clock or something. So it was pretty nice. It wasn't
Well,
bad.
it also helps that it's getting dark later. Like if you're
Yeah,
gonna run
yeah,
a night
sure.
match, the last thing you want to do is run it during the summer. Because we're
Exactly.
not waiting for darkness forever, but in the winter, you're a little cold, but you're gonna get it done faster. So cool. Yeah, that sounds like it was fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. Yep.
So, are you going to be up there at Fort Meade for much longer?
No, I'm PCSing down in or in January. I'll be going down to Fort Gordon, Augusta, Georgia. I'll be an M-West instructor down there, so I'll be leaving in January,
Okay.
sometime probably middle of the month.
So I don't know exactly where Augusta, Georgia is compared to like Atlanta and places like that, but I know Georgia has a really good crew of competitive shooters and good matches down there, specifically around the Atlanta area. So I would start looking into those areas. East Alabama Gun Club is another place. There's just a load of pretty decent matches, multi-gun, USPSA, good crowds there. One of my guys on the double star shooting team, he lives down in that area. Good people, good crowd, good matches. So, have you started looking at matches down in that area to attend?
Yeah, I checked out practice score, and there seems to be quite a bit. It looks like the drives are going to be a little bit longer in some cases, but it should be pretty good. There's some pretty close to Augusta. There's some over in Augusta's like right on the South Carolina border, so there's some in South Carolina that'll be able to go to. I think all the way down to like Savannah, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So it definitely looks like a pretty decent amount. And I was talking to Raider too, and because he was out in Fort Benning, I think he said he was Fort Benning. He said there's a lot of good stuff out there too. So we'll potentially make the drive out there and see what they got. I think that's
Yeah,
like about 4 hours though, so we'll see.
yeah. So I got two very good friends. One lives in the Atlanta area thereabouts, and the other one lives in like near Savannah. Um, both are three gunners. I don't know if you want to get into three gun and all that kind of stuff, but top quality people, you'll have a good time. Jeremy Swafford, he's a chef and he's a three gunner, so
Nice.
he'll feed you well. Uh, and then James Oliver, like big solid dude, freaking been in the three gun game, probably 10, 12 years or so. Been a long time
Dang.
he's been in the game. So, good people to kind of help guide you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for him.
Is Swafford the architect of the bologna sandwich?
Yes, the fried bologna sandwich with the egg. Yes.
Okay. I've heard nothing but legends.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah. Cool, man. Hey, we appreciate your time, Andrew, to coming on and talking about the first Mick for this upcoming season. But I'll turn it over to you, man. Anything you want to say to the audience in terms of practical shooting, Marine Corps marksmanship competitions? Floor is yours.
Yeah, just get out there and do it. The best way to get into it is to just jump in. I never shot a match before, and last year was the first one. And then from April to June, I was shooting like 2 matches a week. So yeah, it's a awesome time. It gets a little expensive. That's why I jumped into USPSA first, because barrier entry is a little bit less costly than some of the other guys or disciplines. So it's definitely a lot of fun though. Gives you a good excuse to get outside.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
absolutely. I know you don't have much longer in the area, but like, let's keep shooting matches together. I've enjoyed having you on my squad.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've come a long way. And yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch with you after you leave for Georgia, because my in-laws live down in Florida, and I might head down that way a few times for some major matches.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you mentioned the Florida State one in January, so I'll be
yeah,
mid PCS during that, but I might be able to make something happen. So we'll see.
okay, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, for our audience, let us know how we're doing, and appreciate you listening to this episode. Thanks all.